Okay, and welcome to Introduction to Photoshop for Photographers. And what I want you to do first of all is I would like you to open up Lightroom, of all things, and I want you to find a picture that has a person face on. You need to be able to see their eyes, hopefully a close-up. If you need to crop the picture, then letter R, crop it, crop on in there close so that you can see their face. Excellent. Once you've done that, man, that's a terrible photo. Okay, so once you've done that, we are going to send this from Lightroom to Photoshop. And you're going to do that by going cmd-E. Now, you're going to get edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments, edit a copy, or edit original. You might not get this window if you have not edited the picture. All right, so edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments is what we want. We say edit, and we send it to Photoshop. Your Photoshop may take a lot longer because mine was already open, and if it has never been opened on your computer, then it will take a fair amount of time. Give it some time. You'll notice down on the bottom that this little Photoshop icon starts bouncing. Now, while we're down in the dock, your Photoshop is probably going to be way over here in the dock. I want you to grab it and drag it into the middle. And then let go. And if your Lightroom is way over here too, so if it's way over here, drag that into the middle of your dock as well, because that way you have access to these guys and you can start things up. Now, I want to talk about opening a file in Photoshop. Now, actually, before I do that, if you don't have a picture in Lightroom that you can use, you will notice that on my instructions page, there is a photo that you can download and use. That's this one you got right in front of you. Okay, so here's the instructions page. You can use this picture, which is right there. So you're welcome to have at her. All right, so now, how do you open a picture in Photoshop? You open a picture in Photoshop either by opening up in Lightroom, or if you are in Photoshop, you can go File and Open, and then you find the picture that you wish to open. Okay, just double click on it, or click Open. Or the other thing that you can do too is you can right click or control click on the picture and say open with Photoshop right here. Open with Photoshop, and then it does exactly that. It fires up in Photoshop. So that's how you open up a file in Photoshop. Okay, let's take a look at this window right here, all of our windows. All right, so we want everybody's window to look the same, right? And so in order to do that, we're going to reset all of our stuff so that we are all looking at the same thing. So up here for window, I want you to go to Workspace and make sure that you have Essentials selected, okay? And then I want you to go Window, Workspace, and even though we have Essentials selected, I want you to say Reset Essentials. Now, for some of you, such as me right now, you'll see nothing happened. But if somebody before you has used Photoshop and changed up some of the windows, then it may have just changed. But I wanted everybody to have the same thing right here. Okay. Now, I want to talk about the left-hand side. You'll notice that we now have all of these tools. I want you to hover your mouse over top of each one, and you'll see it tells us the name of the tool and the shortcut. Like this is the Lasso tool. See how the shortcut is the letter L? So this is telling you all the different things, and it's kind of cool. It even has a little animation showing you exactly how it works. So that's kind of neat. All right, so the tools are over here. Each time you click on a tool, all of the stuff that you have for changing the tool and all of your options are along the top, right up here. So you see here, I'm in the marquee tool. I have different options across the top. If I pick the stamp tool, now I've got my options for the stamp tool across here. Okay. On the right-hand side, we have a variety of windows, but we really only care about two ones today. The first one is our layers window. That is this section down here. It is so important that you know what layer you're in. If you make a mistake in Photoshop in the beginning, it's probably because you're not in the right layer, and I will explain that in a bit. All right, next is your history window. That's this little guy right here. Whenever you do something, it records in the history, and you can back up and go to whatever step you were at. I'm going to show a little bit more of that, but I would like to point out, see how I put my mouse over top of the bottom, I dragged down about halfway. That's usually where I like it. I like you to do that. I opened up the history window by clicking on this guy. You can close it by clicking on that guy. All right. Now, as far as workspaces go, we went to the Essentials workspace, but later on you are able to actually choose. You can save your own types of workspaces, and you can even pick other types that are in here. Should have mentioned that before. All right, so let's go to layers. I want you'll notice here that your background layer is locked, and it's called background, right? For some of you, it may be called layer 1 or layer 0, and maybe it's not locked. That's totally fine. We're going to change the name of the background layer by double-clicking exactly on the word background. Double-click on that, and you see we get new layer right here, and call it original. Original. Now, sometimes you kind of miss a little bit, and you don't click exactly on the words. So maybe you might get this, okay, when you double click exactly on the words. Okay, Photoshop can be a little bit finicky that way. That's okay. Just type in the name of the document or the name of your layer, and yeah, you're good to go. Okay, great. So now we have the background version is called original. I want to just say why we did that. Essentially what's going on is Photoshop isn't like Lightroom. Lightroom lets you reset back to the original picture for as long as you have this thing. And so what you are going to do is, what you can do is you can 3-4 years later, if you want to go back and reset it or back up in the history, you can totally do that in Lightroom. Photoshop, you cannot. So what we do is we save the original picture, and then we make a duplicate, and we work off of the duplicate. All right, so just trust me. We're going to click on the original layer right here and go Command J to make a copy of the original. Notice it now says original copy. All right. We're going to just play with this layer, so that's exactly what we're going to call it. Double click on the word original copy and type play. All right. I worked with an old photographer who used to say, you name your children, you name your layers. Always name your layers. Okay. All right, so this one is called play. Excellent. Next, we're going to zoom in on this left eye. Hit the letter Z for zoom, and you will see that we have this tool down here in the bottom left corner, the zoom tool. And if you hover over top of the left eye, click it once, hey look, you're zooming in. Click it twice, zoom in, click it a third time, you've really zoomed in. Awesome. Now, along the top, you will notice you've got all different settings for this. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to make sure that Scrubby Zoom is checked, please. Okay? And what I'd also like you to do is hold down the Option key. Hey, look at that. You will notice that my zoom tool turns to a negative sign while you're holding down the Option key. Okay, and that's Alt for Windows. So you click and it zooms out. Awesome. So that's pretty darn easy. Click without the Option key, you've got the plus sign, it zooms in. Hold down the Option key, you got the negative sign, it zooms out. Scrubby Zoom means you click and drag to the right or to the left. So if you click and drag to the right, it zooms in. If you click and drag to the left, it zooms out. If your Photoshop is having a little bit of memory problems, it will zoom in super far because it's sort of like when you hold down a key, it just keeps repeating. All right. So now after we've done the zoom tool, I want you to zoom in a couple of times on the eye. And sometimes you want to totally resize the picture. And so you can see everything. Go Command 0 on a Mac, Control 0 on Windows, and it resizes the picture. That's such a handy shortcut. Command or Control 0. Okay. So now what I want you to do is I want you to zoom in on, I don't know, let's pick the right eye instead of the left eye, and you're going to scrubby zoom on in. I'm scrubby zooming, I don't really care how you do it. And I want you to hit the letter H. Hey look, you've got a hand. You can grab and drag over to wherever you want. You can also get this hand by holding down the space bar. The space bar will automatically give you the hand. So for instance, here I'm in the zoom tool. I hit Z for zoom. I hold down the space bar. I've got the hand. It gives it to you really quickly. That works actually in a lot of Adobe products. You hold down the space bar, it gives you the hand, and you can just grab and drag. Awesome. Okay, so let's zoom in. Make sure you're zoomed in on the left eye right now. Left eye. All right, so you might need to use the hand tool to resize and get that guy right in the middle. And I want you to hit the letter L on your keyboard. You're going to get the Lasso tool. That's this fellow right here. Now, do you see how there's a little triangle in the bottom right corner? What that means is that if you hold down the mouse on it, there's some other lassos that are underneath, different types. Okay, at the moment we just want this top one, but you can see from the triangle, it's telling you that you've got other options. All right, so you should have just the regular lasso tool. Great. So now what I want you to do with the lasso tool is I want you to draw a circle or an oval or whatever it is around the eye. Now you will notice with the Lasso tool, wherever I go, it draws the little selection, and you and basically you can see here I'm going around wherever it goes, and when I let go, it draws a straight line to where I started. Okay. I forgot to say something. You should be in the play layer. And you can, if you haven't selected the play layer, it's totally fine to select it now. Okay? So, because what we're going to be doing next has to be in the play layer. And when you make mistakes in Photoshop, it's because you're in the wrong layer. So many times. 85% of the time. Okay. So that was our Lasso tool, and you see we've selected this part around the eye. But you know what? We may not want this little dipsy doodle right here. So hold down the Option key, and you'll see how my lasso just changed to a negative sign? right? Like that. All right, so now I'm going to draw a circle around the part I don't want and let go, and it removed that from the selection. Isn't that neat? Okay, you know what? I think I want a little bit more here. So I'm going to add to my selection by holding down the Shift key. See the plus sign that just appeared? So I'm going to select the part that I want. Boom. See how it did that? It added to the selection. Maybe I'll add a little bit in here, and we're good. Awesome. Okay, you know what? I'm going to get a little bit more of this part right here. So that way I've got that whole line for the eyelid. Excellent. Now that you have the eye selected and some skin around the eye, all right, you're going to hit the letter V. The letter V is the move tool. That's this very first one up here. You've got Artboard tool, which I've never used. And you've got the move tool. The letter V is what you want. Now what you want is you want to have show transform controls turned on. All right, here's where the magic happens. Hover your mouse over top of one of these guys on the corner like this, and then you're going to click and drag the eye outwards. Look at that. So you can click and drag it outwards. If you want to move it around, you can now click in here. See how I'm moving this around here like that? Okay. Then what I want you to do, so I've resized it, but then you take your mouse, and this is really, it's kind of hard to get. Right on the corner, you move it out on a diagonal. See how it changed right there? Then go a little further on the diagonal, changes to these rotation arrows. Click and drag and rotate all the way around so that the eye is upside down, and then wait for it to reset right there. There you go. And then drag it into place so that it's matching as best as you can get it for now. Look at that. That is so weird. Good. Now, with Photoshop, when you transform, when you change a shape, what happens is it says, hey, do you want this? See this guy right here? This is the cancel transform. All right, and that's commit transform. By the way, this is the escape key and this is the enter key. So not the, for some keyboards or some versions, if you hit return, it doesn't work. Okay, and on my keyboard it does. So enter and return are the same. Some keyboards, no. All right, you can click the check mark. Awesome, so we've committed that transformation. Super. I want to point out, if you've made a mistake, you can open up history. Look at this. We can back up. We can back up a whole lot right here. Okay, or I can go back forward. There it is. So there's your history, and you can, so if you've made a mistake or whatever, just back up to wherever it is. Keep in mind that if you back up and then as soon as you do something, all of this stuff in here will change. It'll disappear. So so make sure that you know what you're doing when you back up. If you're just doing it to look to see, be very careful. All right, so I'm going to go back to free transform. That's the last thing I did. And we're going to do that. Excellent. So that is how to use the move tool. And the one last thing before we go on to the next video is deselect. We want to unselect this part. Okay. You can go up to select and say deselect, or Command-D. Command-D is what I always use. Fabulous. Command-0 shows us this. Wow, that's super weird. Okay, excellent. All right, so I want you to go Command-S to save what you've got. And if it's already got a name, it'll be it'll just automatically save. If it's called Untitled, it'll get you to save it on your drive. And so give it a name that makes sense and then hit save. Great. Go on to the next video, please.